All right. So for those of you who haven't met me, I'm the founder of What's Next, HR consulting firm that I started 12 years ago, and we work specifically with small to medium businesses on basically everything to do with your people in your business. I am now based in New York, and I head up our global expansion and also the learning and marketing division of the business. And I'm also particularly interested in bringing back global business learnings to our clients. So we do a lot of education on what's happening globally in our space. I was also a member of Queensland Leaders. So 2011 was the year that I came in. And then a few years after that, the business became an industry expert. We did that here in Queensland and Victoria and New South Wales. That was a couple of years of a lot of travel. I may have lost it a little bit those couple of years, but I'm a really big believer in leaders coming together like this and sharing their knowledge and experiences. And I think what Stephen and James have done in creating this organisation is so important. So I'm a big supporter and a big fan, and have gained so much from being involved myself. So our point of difference at What's Next is that we focus on working with owners and taking a very commercial approach about the future of HR, or HR for the modern world we call it. So we are consistently looking at trends and also looking at future predictions in the space of HR and workplaces and leadership. And so as we head towards the new decade, and as it's our last workshop for the year, I thought this was the perfect time for us to focus on what do workforces need to be aware of in the 21st century. So you may be surprised to hear that experts are saying that the future of work is not robots and AI. Would you believe it? But rather the future of work and our ability to build strong businesses is actually all about leadership. They're saying that leadership is the most important part of our businesses going into the 21st century. And I personally believe that leadership is one of the most difficult roles that we have in business and in life. And I think that no matter how much experience we hold or how many experiences we have in our life, the people that we lead are so unpredictable because they're humans. So it's a really, really tough job because we are forever changing. So leadership to me is the hardest thing, and I'm really not surprised that what the experts are saying is that leadership is really going to be the key part of how we run our businesses and whether our businesses are going to be successful in the next century and the next decade. So we also have to add to that the fact that we know that we're in this ever-changing landscape. We don't need to talk about change, that's just norm now. We know that everything's always going to be changing, and we're actually always going to have to be learning to adapt to that change. That's nothing new, but this is something that has become part of our lives, and leadership is so important to that. So our clients are, in most cases, fast growth companies undergoing some sort of change. So that could be merger and acquisitions, it could be their downsizing, rapid growth, a market pivot due to their industry being disrupted. They could be having severe turnover or change of ownership. There's lots of different reasons why our clients are going through change. And over the past 2 years in particular, we've seen the biggest issues with our clients is leadership or leadership capability going through this change. That's what's happening. So if the world is not going to stop changing, which we know, and leadership is what's going to make or break our businesses in the future, then we have to continually become better leaders forever. So today, what I want to share with you is what we consider right now, based on what we're seeing and what we're reading about and learning, the top 5 areas that leaders must embrace coming into the new decade. And I'm really sorry to say that that's 5 of a very, very long list because leadership is massive. But let's just deal with 5 because these are the key ones that we're hearing about. But before I start getting to that, I want to get you to share, do some work with me, get your clickers out, because I want to know what you think is the biggest challenge for leadership in the next decade. And I've given you 5 choices. Firstly, the first one is about human connection and the concept of allowing our workers to be humans at work. Secondly, is the biggest challenge the gig economy or freelancing that we've seen really take off? Remote and flexible working, we've been talking about that for a while, but it's still a major one on our table. The balance of people and machines, or managing mental health and personal lives in the workplace. So what do you think is the biggest challenge for leadership in the next decade? Have your clickers ready? Let's go. Not at all surprised by that. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. All right, thank you for sharing, but great to see these interesting results from all of you and what you're seeing. So let's get into the first area of what leaders must embrace, and this is reinventing our ability to learn. So according to Deloitte's Global Human Capital Trends Survey 2019, 86% of respondents believe that they must reinvent their ability to learn based on the changing work environment. So what does that mean? We have to be open to learning no matter how long we have been in an industry or in a role or as a leader. So we don't have a choice anymore to sit back and say, I've been doing this for 20 years, I've got my 10,000 hours, I'm an expert. We don't have that ability anymore because we are always going to be chasing the expertise now. So the ability to train ourselves to learn quicker and in different ways is going to be critical. So I'm sure many of you consume learning through voice, podcasts, audio. That's relatively new. You know, we weren't doing that 10 years ago. We also now have short video and long form video. That's a great way to learn. Thank you, YouTube, for that. And also there's an emphasis on learning from different industries and generations. I'm a big believer in learning from industries that are different to mine, and I often go to conferences or workshops for industries that have nothing to do with my industry because it lets me look at my business from a different perspective. I also strongly believe in learning from anyone. You can learn from everyone, regardless of age, regardless of what their resume says. So this ability to open up the way that we learn is going to be critical. And we must create an environment in our businesses where we're teaching people how to learn, when to learn, and what to learn. So it's not just us. We have to be implementing and reigniting this in our business. So we see the reinvention or reignition of internal training, things like lunch and learns, short form continual training, internal communication channels. These are going to be really important focus points for our leaders to make sure that we're not only training our people on what they need to know, but we also need to train them on how to learn, because we're not learning like we were taught at school. And because we now need to be doing this as part of our survival, we as leaders need to be teaching our people how to keep that learning going, not just what they should be learning. Yep. So as a leader, how are you going to make learning in all different ways part of your everyday activity, but also as part of your business? All right, let's get on to this really sad statistic. So as we saw, mental illness is something that's all on our minds. So with mental illness, it often sits outside of the workplace, but it almost always impacts the workplace, regardless. So as leaders, we really need to understand this. In fact, as people, we really need to understand this very, very challenging topic. Thinking about in our workforce and the people that work for us, understanding that anyone at any time can be struggling with some sort of mental illness, and it comes in forms that we may not think of. So it could be that someone's lost a baby, or something I see a lot, a mum with kids that are finishing school and about to move out. That can cause enormous distress. Personal finance pressure at home, kids trouble, not having a good time at school, marriage breakdowns, someone not sleeping, loneliness, substance abuse, pressures of just having a young family. We know what that's like. The list goes on. Mental health is not just about someone who has been diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety. That's not what it is. And so we need to now be able to understand that the things that are going on in our everyday life are impacting people's ability to stay healthy, and then they're bringing that into the workplace. And we as leaders need to be able to learn to manage that. It's a big responsibility. In fact, I get a bit goosebumpy because I feel that this is just such a massive topic. So the point here is that you will have employees affected by this, and you will most likely be affected by this. And the first step is our ability to lead this through human connection. So human connection is shown through qualities such as empathy, care and compassion. And these are now essential traits of an effective leader. We actually must have these to manage a business in the next decade. And we might think that that's just who we are, but really, how much do we think about those traits as part of our leadership job description? Because we must have those now. We now need to be connecting with people on a more human level and getting to know them as people rather than just workers. And, this can be done really quite simply by just getting to know people for who they are outside of their work. So we've seen workplaces do lots of different things to allow people to be more human at work. One of the ones that is very, very common in New York is bringing your pets to work. There's always dogs everywhere in every workplace I go to over there. They just love it. But that is really bringing their family into work with them, and it really does play an important part of who they are. At What's Next, we have a Slack channel where we share our personal highlights, so what we're doing on the weekend and any important milestones, child's graduation, that sort of thing. We also openly discuss mental health. We celebrate or acknowledge Are You OK Day, and we have deep conversations with our employees in their one-on-ones about what's going on in their life and how we can support them. So fostering human connection and supporting people to come to work as their full self is now part of our leadership role. And it doesn't have to be, as you can see, really difficult things to do. It's just about being aware of it and making sure that it's happening and becomes part of your DNA of your business. So I was interested to see the results of the clicker, because I personally think mental health is probably the biggest challenge that I think about as a leader. And in our work, we would have a client every week at least come to us with some sort of issue around this space with their employees. So it's really massive. So I wanted to ask you, have you been faced with an employee who is suffering from a mental illness in some capacity that you've had to deal with as a leader? Yes, no, and maybe you're just not sure, and perhaps you're thinking now, oh, maybe they were and I didn't recognise it. Yeah. Pretty big, hey? Okay, because I just think this is so important, I want to spend a little bit more time on it. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to do a table share, because I think that the more that we can help each other in this area, because we're not experts, but the more we can share and help each other, the better. So I'd like to just allocate a little bit of time to just talk around the table. What are you doing in your workplace to embrace human connection and support mental health? Have you got anything that you're actually doing? Maybe you're not, but you've now got a few ideas and you want to throw them around. So I'm going to give you some time to have this very, very important conversation and share with each other, and then I'll bring you all back for the rest. Okay, everyone, we're going to come back, finish our conversations. I think it sounds like there might be opportunities to continue these conversations at another time at the networking or connect with each other outside of leaders. These are really, really important conversations to have, and that's what the purpose of these coming together with other CEOs and leaders to share these really challenging ones. So let's move on to the third one. So managing the side hustle. So in the past, I've talked a lot at Queensland Leaders about the gig economy and the opportunity that this has created for business owners. And basically the gig economy, for those who don't know, is basically the temporary work market or where you can have access to contractors or freelancers who can work for you on specific projects for a certain amount of time. And I think this has been great for small businesses because it's meant that we've been able to engage people in an affordable way and move our businesses forward, getting projects done and those nice to haves done because of this introduction of the gig economy. So I've always thought this is great. However, today I want to talk about the gig economy from an employer's perspective, because this is, this whole concept of the side hustle is just growing at a rapid rate. So how do we actually manage this? And this is something that I personally think about as an employer quite a lot. And I'm really supportive of people having side hustles and doing passion projects or trying to get some extra cash in. But I still think about how does this impact the job that they do for me? Because there's typical issues, right? So around productivity and effectiveness of, say, an employee who's been driving Uber all night. How are they really going to perform in my workplace the next day? Even though I'm supportive of them going and getting that extra funds for their family. And how committed is someone going to be if, they're totally excited about their new online business that's bringing in passive income and they're coming into my place to do their work? Are they going to be as passionate? And will people still be as connected to my mission and be truly engaged in our culture if they've got these other distractions? So as someone who is really supportive of this, I also think, how is this going to impact the culture, not even just the performance of my business, but the actual culture of what my business is? So I actually think this topic is going to evolve, and I'm really interested to see what happens in this space and how I think out of everything I've done so many disruption talks for leaders over the last 10 years, and I really think this is the one that's probably going to really see our workplaces changing the most. But some things that we recommend and that we do ourselves but recommend for our clients is firstly really ensuring that your roles are very outcome focused. So no job descriptions with a list of tasks that you want someone to do. This just doesn't work these days. We need roles within our business to have outcome profiles that are really specific about what does success look like, what do you need to achieve to be doing your job properly. That's really, really important. Regardless if you've got no one doing side hustles, you should be running your business that way anyway, but this is critical at this time. And I think that if you aren't doing outcome profiles, if you haven't got that outcome focus, you should definitely talk to our CEO, Ben, about that, because I actually think this is probably the biggest game changer in a business's performance is changing this thinking. I also really encourage leaders to have more conversations about setting clear expectations. We see so many issues in the workplace because people haven't set the clear expectations. So having that conversation and also enabling discussions about how are you going to make a team member, an individual, get more of what they need in your workplace. Could you offer them another project that's more exciting for them? Could you offer them some extra hours so that they could get out of a financial bind? If you're connecting to them as a human, you're having these conversations, which then enables you to perhaps make changes within your work environment to fulfill their needs or support their either not having a side hustle or having a side hustle. So what can we be doing to assist them and support them in what they need in your workplace or potentially out? So this is, one of my favourite topics at the moment. Okay, so here is an interesting statistic for you. So according to this is an article in Forbes magazine. So 60% of today's workforce believe flexibility is a right, no longer a benefit. And 72% of Generation Z respondents stated flexibility was the leading criteria for when choosing a job. So this is big. I have mixed feelings about this, but anyway. So this brings us to number 4, which is creating an employee-centric workplace. So we know that work-life integration, because we do not use the word balance anymore because we know that it implies that something's equal, and we just know that work and life is just not like that. But we know that work-life integration leads to more engaged and productive employees. We've seen a million studies on this, so we know this, and we've been talking about it for years. But if leaders can implement or complement an employee's life with their work, then both parties will win. But we need to put some effort and time into this. We can't just say this is just about offering flexible hours. I have always said that one of the benefits of having a small to medium business is that we can customise our employees' experience because of our size. So we can actually give individuals what they need. So someone needs to leave early so they can pick the kids up from school. Someone else wants to be able to do more projects with the boss. Someone else needs something else. We can do that. In large corporates, it's a logistical nightmare to do individualised employee experience. But we can. So why aren't we? Because it's one of the benefits, the few benefits that we can get over our corporates. So we've got things around employee-centric, so varying start and finishing times. We have, someone who always likes to start late and work late. It just works, and it just works for him. So why not? Identifying, I'm a big believer in energy management over time management, so I know that there are some people that just work better at night and others work better in morning. I mean, why wouldn't I utilise their energy when they're at their best? Why would I make them work a set hours? For what reason? I don't know, because we always have. It's silly. We don't need to do that now. So for us, or the way I look at it, it's really just about experimenting with options, listening to employees and then just experiment. And for those of you who know me, that you would know that I love a workplace experiment, and I have done many at What's Next, some really out there crazy ones, and some have worked and there's quite a few that haven't, but that's what experimenting is all about. And I'm really just doing it for you. So I experiment, make my team the guinea pigs, and then I tell you whether you should do it or not. Yeah, so we are doing one at the moment, and that is one that is a really big topic right now, and that's the 4-day work week. So we implemented the experiment around the 4-day work week, and basically what that means is that everyone in the team only works 4 days, but they get paid for 5. So they get paid the same, but they work for only 4 days. Now, initially, to adapt to this change, they need to work extra hours on the 4 days, so they've got longer days. But the ultimate goal is they work a normal business day over 4 and get 5 days of work done because they focus on productivity and efficiency. And I'm a big believer that we are wasting so much time. So we've got less time to do something in, we still get it done. If we get more time, it takes us that amount of time to do something. So we're trialling this at the moment. We're 2 months in, and we're still trying to get the team to understand output versus hours. This is how we've worked. All of us have worked for such a long time. So it's a really interesting experiment. I'm really keen to see whether it's something that we decide to implement or something that we decide to make a permanent fixture in 2020. It's going to be about the team. The whole structure of the process has been about what the team want. And so that's really interesting. So when thinking about creating an employee-centric workplace, it's really about outcomes being non-negotiable, but freedom being accepted and encouraged, and thinking about the individual. So this is the 5th area. This was a really big topic at we go to a global HR conference in America every year called SHRM, and this is one of the biggest topics that they talked about, because recruitment and talent sourcing is something that everyone is always worried about and complaining about. And I was really happy to see this, because this is all about changing the way that you look at your talent and who you bring into your business. And so I really like this because about 4 years ago, I experimented with something else that we ended up creating, which was in our recruitment division, which is designed specifically for small business. We do hourly recruitment, all things specifically for a small business needs. I made the decision that we would no longer give our clients the resumes of the candidates that we were proposing that they interview until the interviews were locked in, to take away any bias and to open up their thinking. And when I implemented this, the team, as usual, said, "Oh my God, Sel, what are you doing?" But I really believed that this was going to change the outcomes. Now, I was expecting to get quite a lot of pushback. I did recognise that there was a risk that I would lose recruitment work as a result. I didn't. I did have pushback. I did have a lot of questions. But the clients, took it on and said, okay, we'll do this. And what was really interesting is we've had so many candidates recruited now that where the client has said, I wouldn't have even interviewed them had I seen their resume. So this is really about being able to be open-minded about people you wouldn't necessarily have considered before. So criminals, for example, some of them do have skills before they go into prison, and a lot of them are learning a lot of things whilst they're in prison. Can we look beyond that? Obviously, we've talked about for the past, a lot around people with disability, or you might want to employ someone like me who has no degrees or qualifications. Heaven forbid, pretty scary, I know. So thinking about, well, what are some of the skills, capabilities, attitudes, capacity that people have that might not necessarily tick the boxes that you are used to thinking that you need ticked in your business. So think about attitude, diversified skill set, open your mind, and if you don't do this, you will lose to your competitors in the next decade, I assure you. So the 5 things: reinvent our ability to learn. We are not going to be the experts anymore. Connecting with the human. One thing I highly recommend that you look at is there's first aid courses now in mental health. So I think every single leader and CEO should be doing that. Managing the side hustle. I can't wait to see what happens here. How do we keep people engaged? What's our culture going to look like? Create your workplace for the individual. Have the conversations, which you are because you're connecting with the human, and get your talent. Get more diversified talent because you're open-minded. So I'm not going to get you to have a chat because otherwise Leanne will get very mad at me. Yeah, okay, that's okay. So this is what I was going to ask you to talk about. But what I'd like you to do is this is now your homework. So I want you to think about what would you implement? What have you heard today where you've thought, oh, we used to do that and we don't anymore? Or what can you do? Because these things are not difficult. They're actually quite simple. You just need to do them. So I hope that you do that. Remember, experimenting, trying things. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. Just give it a go. Try things, change them. If it doesn't work, pull them. Doesn't matter. Just make sure you have a go. And finally, as I said, but I believe that leadership is one of the hardest jobs, and I also see it as one of the most privileged. I think that the responsibility that comes with influencing someone to have a better life is an incredible, incredible responsibility that we can't take lightly, but we should be so proud to embrace. The future is not about robots, it's about humans. So don't forget that. Don't listen to all those techies for the remainder of 2019. I hope you take some time to look back on the last decade and focus on all the great things that you have done, not all the things you didn't get to. Ignore that list. Give yourself a pat on the back and remember that life is a journey of having a crack, so don't take it too seriously. Thank you.